Hi, I'm Mark Hoebee, producing artistic director here at Paper Mill Playhouse, and this is Director's Viewpoint. Tonight, though, we have a very special guest, actually. This is not our director of Clue, our upcoming production. This happens to be the book writer, Sandy Rustin.
Hello. I'm so glad to be here.
We're so happy to have you.
Thank
I'm
you.
so happy to have you. You and I have a very long relationship.
Yes, we do.
We're not going to say the year, but we've known each other for quite a long time because we have a mutual alma mater.
Northwestern University.
That's right.
Go Cats.
Go Cats. That's right. And we were just talking earlier, you were a student there.
Yep.
When I was a visiting artist.
Like the most exciting visiting artist of all time, because you were in the original company of Sweet Charity and then came to direct our production and choreograph our production of Sweet Charity. It was my senior year. It was so exciting.
Just one correction, it wasn't the original back in the 60s. It was the national tour with Donna McKechnie.
It doesn't matter because the rumor was that it was the original and you did a really good Gwen Verdon impression.
Well,
so that was our takeaway.
We'll see about that. But anyway, I did work with Bob Fosse. That was very exciting. And I remember I used to love going back to Northwestern to work with all the young talent and students there, many of whom we've continued relationships with through the years. But I knew you as an actress back then.
Yes.
And you were in the production that I directed and did all of the comedy roles.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And then went out and had quite a career as a performer.
Yeah, I worked as a performer. I mean, I still do work as a performer from time to time, but since having children, I have really pivoted my career more into being a playwright. But I worked in New York as an actress for about 10 years.
And also on the road, I remember you did a tour of Greece where you played Sandy, if I'm not mistaken.
I did. And it was one of the, that was my first job right out of school, and it was so much fun, but because my real name is Sandy, it was my first experience with stage doors, and I would come out and, all the kids would be there, what's your real name? Like, no, my real name is Sandy, and they'd be like, no, come on, tell us. So we used to have fun making up names at the stage door for kids of who I would be that day, because they didn't like it that was also my real name.
That is so funny. So now you are, in addition to being a performer, now I know you on a different level. Well, first of all, as a parent, we're both parents. We're neighbors. You live in the neighborhood right around the corner
I live in
here,
Maplewood.
which is so exciting, where I used to live, beautiful town of Maplewood. And now you've come to us as a writer.
Thank God.
I know. And actually, Sandy was the book writer on our last show, Jolly Holiday.
Yes.
So you've kind of been our writer in residence this season.
That's the best. Thank you.
But so our relationship on this show goes back pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And just a little history. We at Paper Mill had known about this stage adaptation of Clue, and Patrick, my associate artistic director, had seen a version of it, but then a whole new team came on board to create this production that was at the Cleveland Playhouse. And Steve Gabriel, who's a producing friend and partner of ours, urged me to go see it, and I flew out, and it was right before the pandemic started. I think it was, when did that run? January of 2020?
Right, exactly. Yep, it opened in January of 2020 and ran through, I think, part of February, and then it was right when the cast got back from Cleveland that everything shut down.
And I saw it, I know it was the closing week, so it was right around that moment.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to think back on that, because I remember it was a very quick trip. I made the decision at the very last minute to go, and I flew out, and part of it was because of you. I knew that you were the writer. Our director, Casey Hushin, who I'd not met, but I knew about her reputation and her talent for so many years. And then also, we'll get to this in a minute, but so many of the cast were Paper Mill family and friends. And I thought, oh. And Steve said, please go see it. It's really doing great. And I flew out. It was such a joyful trip. It was so quick. You weren't even there.
I wasn't there for the closing. I was there for the rehearsal process and the previews and the opening.
Yeah.
And then Casey and I went home.
And I was only in for one night. I think I flew in. I landed at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, checked into my hotel, ate dinner, ran over to the theater, and then laughed and just had the greatest time at the show, and then went out afterwards with a lot of the cast and just talked about it. And then I called Steve right away and I said, oh my gosh, who has the rights? How do we get this? What are we gonna do? But anyway, let's talk about the show, because, and then my son, who was very angry at me for going and not taking him, because
he's a Clue fan.
He's a major Clue fan, loves the film, loves all of that. So, and I played the board game growing up.
And had you seen the film?
I had seen bits and pieces.
But
of
you're
the film.
not like, there were people who love the film.
Yeah.
So that wasn't you.
And well, I wasn't like a Clue fanatic.
Okay.
But I'll tell you that when I went to Cleveland Playhouse to see the production, and they had something very clever. They have a very big lobby there because they share that space with. Is it the State Theater? Or there's
It is. It's a shared space, and
Yeah.
it's a really glamorous, beautiful lobby.
Enormous
Yeah,
lobby that
yeah.
goes sprawling, and they had all these like card tables and chairs set up with Clue games out there, and I got there early to make sure that I had my ticket and everything. And people were there like in costume.
Oh yeah, full
dressed
costume.
up, full costume, playing the game, arriving.
We did not
early.
expect that. We did not expect the Rocky Horror Picture Show element of this
Yeah.
show where people can quote certain lines back to you. People show up in costume. I love that. You know, people really have an ownership over the title of the show because they're either in love with the movie or they grew up playing the game.
Well, I grew up playing the game,
Yeah.
and in fact, not only do I have the game, I have the Golden Girls version of the game.
Of course you
where
do.
it's Sophia. It's like who ate the last piece of cheesecake? And it's not a murder. So it was Sophia on the lanai with Blanche's purse or something. I don't know. But so it's been around and part of the culture for so long that different people have relationships with.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit because obviously there's a lot of expectation about the joy and the fun of the board game.
Right.
And then some of the iconic, and I have since seen the film, performances in the film with Madeline Kahn and Leslie Ann Warren and just an incredible cast. So, talk about your take on bringing that to life on stage.
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, there were a lot of components to keep in mind, right? Like, I wanted to stay true to the tone and style, characters and plot of the film. Also honor the board game, have a wink to the fact that this was a game and that many people seeing this might not have seen the movie, but most people seeing it know what the game is. So
Right.
it was really that was really the driving force of like, how do you take this conceptually and make it something that feels totally original and new for the theater, that feels inherently theatrical, but has enough nostalgia in it that when people see it, that they can recognize the moments that felt most treasured to them, but then also feel like they're seeing something thrilling and new and
be surprised
and unique and have And so that was really the challenge of doing this, and it took a while. It took a few stages to really figure out what that's going to look like. And when Casey came on board as director, one of the greatest things was the two of us literally in our living rooms, like in our backyards, just working together, getting up on our feet, figuring out like, well, if this happens, then could this happen? Thinking through all of the logic and the backstory and all that kind of stuff together, which was such fun and so joyful.
And you and Casey have a personal relationship.
Yes,
too.
we are friends. So, and we had never worked together professionally. And when this project came our way, we just both kind of knew, like, if ever a project landed in our laps that we could have the best time together working on, this was it. And so this show was the first show that we have worked on together, and it really has launched this really wonderful, beautiful collaboration between us. We've since worked together on a bunch of shows and hope to continue to work together. And it's sort of a unbelievable joy to find at this age and this stage of your career to find like, oh, I have this friend and our brains work together like this creatively and we can make really awesome, beautiful things together.
The thing that's so great about it, and I know was part of the experience at Cleveland Playhouse, was people, again, I didn't know the movie by heart. I didn't know what to expect for an ending. I didn't know, I mean, I know the board game, right? You're trying to discover who did it where with what. But that people would see the show and they were so intrigued by the storyline and figuring out what ending you supply, whether that's plausible or not, that they would actually come back and try to find flaws in the logic of what you had written and Casey had directed.
Totally. And you should see, I should show you, actually, I have like pages and pages of backstory logic that is literally just to make sure that the show is foolproof in that way, and that we know that it's super, super clear and clean. Because really, ultimately, yes, the show is a comedy, but it also has to be a murder mystery, really and truly. The stakes really have to exist in order for the comedy to thrive. So the goal in this piece is to create the atmosphere and environment of a murder mystery with the understanding that we all know that we're doing a comedy, right? So it's a fine line, and it's been something really fun to find, especially with this incredible cast.
Which we will get to in just one second, but I do want to say that Casey did talk to me a lot about the backstory and talked to me that she said many, many nights you were up late at night in the hotel during the Cleveland rehearsal and tech process. And we have very smart cast who would say and ask those questions about, well, who has the key?
Yes.
Where is the key now, to this? And how much time does it take to get from the billiard room back into the hallway? And who would I pass or wouldn't I pass? And all of that is completely mapped out to make sure this boat has no holes in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank God we had a cast like that for our first cast in Cleveland, because we hired the very best people we could think of, and we got this incredible cast, and they are so smart, which is exactly what you want when you're doing a play like this, because as you're developing it for the first time, they're going to raise their hand and say, my character wouldn't do that, this wouldn't happen. And so that was also part of the thrill of building this at Cleveland Playhouse, was being like, you're totally right. Stay tuned, and coming back in with 5 new pages the next day, or a brand new scene, or so that was really exciting. It felt like a real creative hub.
I think it's great also for actors too, because a lot of times actors talk about, what's your backstory, what's your 2 weeks before, or your moment before, right? That happened right before you went on stage. But they were really invested in thinking about what's happened between the last time you saw me and now.
Right.
Like, where was I and what happened? And they want that to be correct, so that they're connecting that journey as well.
Yeah, the play is one. It's like you get on the train.
It's a bullet train ride.
Right, and there's only one opportunity in the play where we're not seeing everybody in real time. It only happens once. And other than that, the entire play is a straight through line.
It's linear.
Linear,
right,
exactly.
in real time. Right, that's another thing. It's performed without intermission.
Right.
Because the actual time from top to bottom is real time.
Exactly.
Which I think is thrilling. So let's talk about our cast, because I was so delighted when I went to Cleveland, and so delighted that I think everybody that was a Paper Mill family person in that production has come here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, the queen of comedy at Paper Mill Playhouse, Donna English, who, again, is a Northwestern friend, went to school with me, and has done more shows than any other actress in the 84-year history of Paper Mill. I think this is her 14th production.
That's amazing.
She's amazing and plays Mrs. White.
She plays Mrs. White, and she's glorious. And I hadn't known Donna before this production, but when we saw her for Mrs. White, it was like, well, there she is. That's Mrs. White. Michael Kostroff, who plays Mr. Plum, Professor Plum, I had known him before. He had been in a production of mine, a play that I wrote called The Cottage. Right. Mark Price, who plays Wadsworth.
And also, they've both been in tenors, Lend Me a Tenor comedy.
Yes, I've also seen them here. Like, they're amazing.
And Michael played opposite John Tracy Egan in The Producers here.
Yes, and he's Colonel Mustard.
Right.
So we really did. I mean, we went out and found our comedy gurus, and we were fortunate that they were free and available to do this production when we were doing it in Cleveland, and then free and available to do it again now 2 years later, because we had to press pause.
Yeah, right. But now we're finally up and running. But
now we're doing it.
We have to talk about the rest of the cast too, which is Alex Mandel.
Alex Mandel, who was a new find for both me and Kate. We hadn't worked with him.
I didn't know him
previously,
either, but spectacular.
Spectacular. Kathy Fitzgerald.
Amazing comedic woman.
Who we had loved.
Who's Mrs. Peacock.
She plays Mrs. Peacock. We have
Sarah Hollis is brand new.
We worked with her on this production in Los Angeles.
Oh, right. New to us.
New to Paper Mill.
Right.
And she was new to us this summer when we found her in Los Angeles, and she's terrific, and she plays Miss Scarlet. What other characters are in this play?
Graham Stevens.
Graham Stevens, I knew as a performer, and so when we were looking for a Mr. Boddy, I suggested that we take a look at Graham, and he came in and was just phenomenal. So that was wonderful.
And then there's a great supporting cast, and we have a lot of understudies who are helping us. But the one other person who came to this project sort of late, but is as a new part of the Paper Mill family, is Izzy.
Izzy. And Izzy knew Casey from working on The Prom.
Right.
And then she and I got to know each other working on Mystic Pizza a little bit.
And she actually was here in Beehive, which was one of our digital captures that Casey directed last spring. It's amazing how small the theater world is.
And Izzy plays a vet, and she's
Yvette
wonderful.
the French maid.
Yes.
And just hilarious. So
And then we have Hazel.
who's another Northwestern grad.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
and she's new to this production, but
Right.
I knew her from before, and she's playing the cook. So that's wonderful too.
Many, many other people. Before we run out of time, I do want to talk about, because there's another character in the show that is so important, which is the set.
Yes, Lee Savage designed the set, and
Right.
it is. So the set.
Let me just tell you, when I first sat down, because I didn't know what to expect, so
Yeah.
I went to Cleveland Playhouse and I sat down, and it opens, with this beautiful painting of Boddy Manor, and then the curtain goes up, and it's this very grand entry hall to a mansion with, it looks like mahogany paneling and beautiful parquet floors and everything. And I thought to myself, wow, this is nice. It's kind of like a unit set. And then I was like, okay, this is not a unit set.
It is. It's supposed to be, we want the show to feel like a surprise from
Right.
start to finish. Like, that is the goal, that you should constantly have something new. And the set plays an important part in that. And so, I had an imagination of what that set might be. And then when Casey and Lee came on board, their imaginations went way beyond what I ever could have imagined could have actually physically happened on stage. And they brought it to life in the way that you see it. And it is so thrilling.
It's so terrific, because and Ryan O'Gara, who's the lighting designer, we're
Yes.
just sitting out there now, and talking to him about creating a color and a personality for each room. From the board game, we all know there's the conservatory, there's
Yes.
the study, there's the library, the billiard room, the kitchen. I'm missing something else. The lounge. I don't remember what else. But how each room has its own personality,
Yes.
its own color, and the way that they are activated and discovered in the show is as much a surprise as everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
And some rooms seem to appear out of nowhere.
Exactly.
You
We
know,
don't give too much away.
I'm not going to give it away, but I'm just saying there's some magic happening.
Well, we
there.
wanted it to feel like the board game.
Yes.
You want to walk away feeling like you've really connected to the source material.
Yeah.
And I think that the set takes us a long way towards that goal.
I absolutely agree with you. And the lighting is great, and costumes by Jen Caprio, sound by Matt Krause. I don't know who else we're forgetting, and please help me if I am, but the team has just been a dream. And I think part of it is the material.
Well, thank you.
It really is. It's so clever. It's so good. But there's just a general feeling among the company of joy.
I think, too, especially now in this phase of
Yeah.
this pandemic we've been dealing with, to have the opportunity to come together live in person in a real theater. I mean, yes, we're all wearing masks and we're testing every day and we're all part of this, situation, but we're also in a space to feel really grateful
Yeah.
to be working on a comedy,
Yeah.
because there's laughter in the room all day, every day, and that's the best.
And I do have to say, and I'm not going to give it away, but I know when they made the film, there were several different endings to the film that were actually filmed.
Yep.
And depending on what showing you saw at what theater, you would see a different ending, kind of like The Mystery of Edwin Drood, the
Exactly.
musical, where the audience would vote on who the killer was, or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about doing that kind
Yeah.
of a thing because that is a really famous component of the film,
Right.
and that is the number one question I get.
And
is,
my partner Larry said to me, so what are they going to do? Is it a different ending every night? And I said, I'm not going to tell you. But I will tell you, you will be very satisfied with the solution, the very clever solution about satisfying everybody's questions about that. And I think that is brilliant.
Thanks,
that is,
Mark.
No, I really do. I think it's so brilliant. And we encourage everybody to come and see the show. It's just delightful. It is a wonderful evening of entertainment. Come here to Paper Mill, come back to Paper Mill, have dinner at the Carriage House beforehand, enjoy the show, see it, see if you can figure out who the murderer is and where they did it with what, and then come back and see it again.
yes.
So thank you, Sandy, for joining us.
Thank you, Mark.
Welcome.
And thank you, Paper Mill audience.
Yes, thank you. We look forward to seeing you at Clue and the rest of our season, The Wanderer, and then Sister Act. Take care.